I am really excited to bring forward this conversation with Grace Chung because we unpack how her roots of growing up in Queens as an immigrant helped her succeed in going from Main Street to Wall Street and beyond in a successful HR career. And of course, if you've heard my other conversations, we start big with the meta big views on spirituality and how that is a tie through to meaningful connection, to community, and really to present reality. She also shares how her experiences have helped shape who she is in being the trusted HR business partner to leaders and to companies that she consults with. I know that you are going to find so many golden nuggets, tips, and strategies. So I'm excited for you to join us. Are you ready? Let's drop in.
Welcome to Asian Like Me, presented by me, Dr. Sohee Jun, the podcast for the modern Asian woman redefining what it means to thrive. I've spent years navigating the complexities of culture, family expectations, and career ambitions. Here, we have real, unfiltered conversations with incredible women who are breaking barriers, charting their own paths, and owning their power. Together, we'll dive into the wins, the lessons, and the challenges we all face. And yeah, we'll laugh. We'll share stories and drop some actionable tips to help you crush it in your own way. This is your space to feel seen, heard, and inspired. Ready to rewrite the rules? Let's drop in.
Hi, Grace.
Hi, Sohee.
We are recording this conversation in a very apropos month, AAPI month. It's May. So I'm so excited to be in conversation with you.
Same. It's a great time.
Yeah. Let's start with what gives you hope?
Wow. Well, first, I guess we should define hope, right? Because I think sometimes we use hope as a word casually in conversations, just more in a wishful way. Sometimes we say, I hope you have a good weekend, or I hope you feel better. I hope everything goes smoothly. But, true hope and lasting hope is confident expectation in a future reality.
Ooh, okay. You're the first one that's actually helped me define that.
Yeah, I think everybody has a different definition or view of what hope is, right? But yeah, that's what it is. Like true hope, right? Lasting hope is a confident expectation in a future reality that is unseen, right? In something that is unseen. Yeah. And so for me, when you ask me what gives me hope, right? So there are two ways I'm thinking about it. One is an eternal hope, long lasting, forever hope. And the other is a hope for this side of heaven or the here and the now.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I would share is I'm a Christian, and the basis for my hope is I belong to God, and He's my loving Father, and I'm His child. And the confident expectation I have is that one day He'll bring about a new reality where there's no brokenness, no pain, sickness, sadness, division, my worldview, my callings in life, and every circumstance I find myself in.
Yeah. What a beautiful way of defining it. I love how you really got crystal clear about and I really appreciate your take on the enduring, ever always present hope is how I'm taking that.
Yeah, totally. And then the other hope I have is for the here and the now, right? The reality is that we live in a world today, particularly in America, where we are economically rich, right? But spiritually and communally poor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the way that Ben Sass put it on 60 Minutes recently. And I just came out of a Princeton reunions event with Eric Schmidt, the former chairman and CEO of Google. And he would say it too, right? Like we've seen just massive productivity gains with AI. We see more. Yet we are in so many ways anxious, depressed, divided, and isolated more now than ever before.
Let's pull on that. I'm fascinated by the juxtaposition of that. The tools that allow us to, quote unquote, be more, do more, and yet share your thoughts on that. I love the tension there.
Yeah. And I think it's something that we need to behold more and more, right? And it is easy to get discouraged by that present reality.
Mhm.
But what I'm inspired by is I mentioned Ben Sass, like his vision of bowlings. And what does it mean to be a good neighbor? What does it mean to be a good friend
Mhm.
or a co-laborer or coworker? And that's actually what gives me hope because I think I see it even in my own communities and my own here in Princeton and in my neighborhood in West Windsor, our kids' school community, our church, and like just where we live. We're already living this out, right? But I'm hopeful that as we ask those questions of ourselves and continue to connect in those ways and continue to serve one another, we can become spiritually and communally richer as a country, uh, starting with just pouring into our own circles with the people that we see every day.
Yeah. It reminds me of the phrase, do what you can with what you have, and
Mm.
the impact that one can make in their own way. And it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be grand gestures, but connecting. And the question that comes to mind for me is, how can I help? What is my why? How can I help? And how can I connect in a real way? So I find myself daily, actually, lately thinking about, okay, yes, I can be productive and do heaps of stuff through technology or different modes. And is that what's needed right now? Perhaps I can put that down and actually call my friend who's struggling with the loss of a parent or the loss of a loved one. Those are the moments I think that make for connection, the bridges that connect people back, right? And to create more community and more of a thread that's thicker. I'm a very visual thinker, so I think of the things that tie us together. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
look, we just started meta, Grace. We're like big world
Meta and deep.
dropping big and deep. You're an HR leader and you've had your own firm for what, 8, 9 years now?
Yep. Since the end of 2018. Yeah. Beginning of 2019.
Yeah, we have such parallel tracks in that sense. I started my firm in 2017. So
Wow.
let's go there and like why HR? We're in school fascinated by it. How did you find the path into HR? One, I share that because in my corporate life, I didn't see many HR folks that were Korean American. I was often
Mm.
in the rooms by myself. If I was doing talent discussions or working with leaders, the only. Perhaps you face that too, but how did you find your path to HR?
Yeah, absolutely. In college, I had a ton of internships in public sector, nonprofit, NGO. And towards the end of my time at Cornell, everybody seemed to know what they wanted to do. Everybody had a passion area. And yeah, and I didn't. So I started
I
to
love
think,
that, by the way. I love that you didn't. You don't have to have it figured out is the message I want people to hear.
no, I didn't have a clear answer. But what I did have was a desire to serve, a desire to benefit others and to help others. And what I realized is it's probably worth getting some real skills.
Yeah.
So let me find a job where I can actually gain some real skills and be useful so that should I come back into the public sector at some point, I actually have something to contribute, something real and tangible. And so I started my first job at Morgan Stanley in compensation and in executive compensation. And really, it provided just the fundamentals that I needed in an HR career. And I learned so much just in the first couple of years in that analyst program. But
What
that's
did
how
you
it started
learn?
out.
I'm so curious. When you say you learned so much, what comes to mind for you of the learnings?
Yeah, I mean, there's the technical aspects of working on board books and looking at different aspects of the business. But there's also, I learned to navigate corporate America pretty early on.
That's the gold I wanted to get because this is the stuff, the foundational skills of how to navigate, of managing across, looking at your boss and what they need. That's the stuff I think that makes somebody super successful in the long run. But kind of like
Yeah.
the foundationals.
Yeah. I kind of like to joke that I went from Main Street to Wall Street.
Yeah.
And it was like
Yeah.
crossing that street was it was a huge learning curve. And I grew up as a pastor's kid, as an educator's kid, but really with no sense of what corporate America was like and what working in an investment bank It was like, so for me, it was a big eye opener. But I do think that growing up, I grew up in Queens. I was born in Korea and I grew up in Queens and grew up in an immigrant community
Yeah.
in Flushing in New York.
I love that.
Yeah, all of that actually taught me so much and prepared me in ways that I wouldn't have imagined, right?
Ooh,
So we always, yeah.
I want to dig there. What was the moments that you remember living in a community like that's so diverse, that is got a pulse of its own, that carried you into a different world of work that helped?
Yeah. I think a few things. One is probably just like the work ethic of growing up in that community, having the follow through and the commitment and the relentless power of working that you grew up with.
It is relentless, right? I mean, I talked about this on another previous episode that just dropped. We talked and I called it the 7th gear. When you're an immigrant and you grow up around and in neighborhoods like that, we learn to survive and thrive because we go into another gear. And I have found that often we over-index too much into that in an unhealthy way because it is what made us successful. We just don't often know when to let that go, drop that.
Right. Yeah. But it is that kind of survival mode that I was quite frankly used to growing up
Yeah.
that actually, yeah, really helped me during that time. And I think the other thing is just having grown up in the church and in a pastor's home in an immigrant community where people were constantly in and out of my house, right? So there's never a day where somebody wasn't sitting at the dining room table, with my dad or with my mom and just the influx of people, relationships, problems. Yeah, just different backgrounds, thoughts, conversations. I think that also really prepared me for what was to come too.
I don't think you know this about me, Grace. However, I had a similar, again, another parallel track where my dad, once he became an ordained Buddhist monk,
Wow.
yes,
I did not know
he,
that.
before the years leading up to it, would also have a home full of people, whether they were pastors. My dad's vision, I'm getting a little teary because this is the first time I'm really sharing this. He wanted to be the bridge
Mm,
between all of the different religious sects where people came together and again talked about what tied them together and their bigger vision beyond just the religion part itself. And in the home, I remember visiting them where they lived, and they would always have monks visiting, passing through conversations, the vibrancy of it all. But really, what it left for me is like, there's so much more that brings us together than separates us.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So you did not know that about me.
No, but it makes a lot of sense. That's what really shapes how you bring people together too.
Yeah, similar to you. I see you, sister. So you had that experience, and did it lead you into a different realm of HR, or tell
It
me that.
did. Yeah. And compensation, it tends to be a little bit more insular, very analytical, but insular in a lot of ways. And very quickly, I realized I am a relationship driven person. I love to build community. And I also love to see results, input, output, very outcomes oriented
Yeah.
person. And I just wanted to be part of it all, right? I have this almost tapas approach to life, many things in life, right? A little bit of all things. And
Wait,
some of
what
it is
did you say? Tapas?
yeah, I love
Yeah,
tapas
okay.
approach. Like
That's the first time
taste
I've
and
heard that.
see taste and see a little bit of everything,
I'm
And
borrowing that.
yeah, and a little party in your mouth and a little something different.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I quickly realized like I kind of want to be just part of the entire employee life cycle. And I want to be just in the center of it all, where we're driving the business, where we're working together with teams. And so that really over time led me into a HR business partner role, working directly with executives and their teams and as their organizations are growing and changing. And yeah, yeah, and it just was such a great match.
I love the kind of, I call it a meandering career where you found your foot in somewhere and then it led you into this really, I'm calling it a very diverse career that you got to experience a lot of different things. I think the HR role is so pivotal, It's kind of when I think about the hub and spoke in an organization, they are the center of making a lot of things run, people related, obviously, but the backbone of the company too. So I'm deeply curious, Grace, from your seat as an HR partner, what did you see with Asian women that were maybe limiting them? And I'm pulling from the anecdotal, the things that we say that Asian Americans get stuck at a certain tier, that we don't really often make it beyond the mid-level manager level. There's research citing this too. So what did you see perhaps that were, oh man, that's limiting Asian women in particular, and what would you advise?
Yeah. I think, and this is very broad, right? There's so many different types of Asian women. And even like for me, right? I think I'm a very atypical Asian woman. I probably surprise and shock a lot of people.
That's why you're here.
Because of how bold I am and direct I am and how truth telling I am, right? And I guess what I observe in former colleagues and clients who are Asian women, where I wish we could just get out of that, is just like maybe two things. One is a kind of like inclination or disposition towards perfectionism and having it all sealed up and buttoned up and practiced and rehearsed before doing something. And I'll make up her name right now, but I had a friend and a former colleague who was also a former client who would say, "Hey, Grace, can I do a dry run with you? And can I rehearse this like presentation I'm about to do, right, with 60 people and in front of the business?" And yeah, and she would just rehearse for hours and hours trying to get it perfect. And I would just caution against that because there's a lot of energy, but it also takes out a lot of what's genuine and
Okay,
real.
I'm just gonna be like, "Are you talking about me when I was 20?" Because Grace, literally, I'm raising my hand. I recall, first of all, I had such a fear of presenting. It is the biggest irony that now I love it and I'm on stages. Talk about a plot twist in life. Now,
Mhm.
I will say it was my arch nemesis. I wanted to fake a something to avoid all sorts of being in front of people. That's
Mhm.
how much it got me. And I, in my early career, was put in a lot of rooms in front of a lot of leaders wanting me to present on different things. And it's one of those things, life gives you what you need, the medicine that you need, right? So I did that. I spent hours over rehearsing. This is a story I tell, and I'm embarrassed about it, but I'll share. We were invited to a wedding in Hawaii. Hawaii, beautiful wedding, like
Mhm.
the whole week there. I spent the whole week rehearsing my training that I was gonna do for leaders, like,
No.
short of just going to the actual wedding of my dear friend who I'm still friends with. But I was like, "By the way, did you know that I was only at your dinner and the rest of the time I was in my room rehearsing and practicing?" That moment for me stands out as exactly what you're talking about, the inclination towards getting it exactly right.
Mhm. And I think it's related, and it's also hesitation when there shouldn't be. And I take the example of, I'm going to call her Jenny, my direct report, but she knew the business so well. She knew the team so well. And we're in a talent discussion, and she can challenge a leader. She can come in with some of the insights that she's had. And I knew she had something to share, but I could see a hesitance and a reluctance to speak. And that's something that I would also encourage Asian American women or Asian women to, when you have the answer, what's holding you back? Right? Sometimes they need somebody to say, "I'm not in the moment." Unless I say, "Hey, Jenny, I know you have something good to say."
Yeah.
Right? But afterwards, they need somebody to say, "You have the answers." Like, I
Yeah.
want to hear it. I want to hear it. Yeah.
I love how you are an ally for that person that's struggling. In my coaching practice, time and again, I work with women who over-index in their head, rehearsing, thinking about it, and oftentimes are stopping themselves before it's even said and there's any type of counterpoint or counter view shared in the room. And I think that's such a disservice to the room to not share in its
Mhm.
rawest form, and believe me, I don't think anyone's gonna say something that's so out of line. What's the hesitancy, though? What do you see? The hesitancy because they wanna make sure it's right? Because that's what I'm seeing. They wanna make sure it's right, they don't wanna look like they aren't prepared.
Yeah. Or do I have the right words? Will somebody disagree with me? And how do I react to that? So many questions that just silence person. But yeah, I actually have an example of that too. Like just I mentioned that I'm a truth teller, I'm very direct. That lands well with most executives. But, and not with some who are not as secure. But, I'll tell a story of just how in one of the leadership team meetings I was in, as an HR business partner, an executive, let's call her Jane, said, we should focus on increasing the hiring, right, of Blacks, Latinos, and women.
Mhm.
That compared to the US Census data, right, we're behind on these diverse groups. We have too many Asians. And so that was not going to be a focus, right? And so for me, after the meeting, I was like, you want to go to lunch? And, while we're on the line to get our food, right? We're in New York City. I asked, like, hey, can I share an observation? And I said, we're a data driven company. Would it be good to double click on the Asian employees, right? Because of that, we could be seeing 90% South Asian, say Indian, Pakistani, 8% like East Asians, right? Say Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and 2% Southeast Asian, like Filipino, Thai, Vietnamese. And Asia is a pretty big continent.
That's right.
With, you know,
Yeah.
almost 50 countries and 2,000 languages. Maybe we should look under the hood. What do you think? And Jane was like really just struck by how direct I was, but also so thankful that I didn't call her out in the moment. And she said, thank you so much for sharing that
Mm.
and directly like that with me now. Because I didn't realize that's what I was doing.
2 things I wanna call out. Thank you for sharing that story. One, you took it offline. Sometimes you have to wait for that moment and know, and I think this is the skill of sensing when it's the right moment, and you seized it by saying, "Hey, let's go to lunch and talk about this."
Mhm.
Because, again, who wants to be called out in a room? So I love that approach that you took and that you opened with, "Hey, can I share an observation?" It's an invitation into the conversation because they could be like, "Nah, I'm in a rush," or whatever the
That's right.
situation, right? You want the conversation to land, and I always advise my clients to say, like, invite them into the conversation. If they're not ready, they're not gonna take it in.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Mhm. Just about taking it offline too, right? So again, like I've been an HR partner in really complex sales organizations too, right? Really sophisticated buyers. We've got pensions, sovereign wealth funds, like heads of computational chemistry. And once another sales leader, let's call her Carolyn, actually came up to me and she said that she wants me to address an issue on her team. One of the junior members on the team was dressed in a skirt, too short,
Mhm.
and a top too low. And she thought I should be the one to have the conversation with her about her wardrobe, professionalism, career growth. I really thought about it for a moment. And then I flipped it back to her and I said, Carolyn, this is a great opportunity for you to lift up someone on your team,
Mm.
right? As the more mature, successful woman leader on the team. And I hope you can understand coming straight out of college, right? Not everyone has the budget or the guidance around what to wear to work. I even have a really formal or very casual clothes in my closet that took me years to change coming out of school.
Mhm.
And Carolyn looked at me with bulging eyes, super uncomfortably, and they might have fallen out. She was like, you think I should talk to her? And I said, yes, I do. You can ask her to speak privately, right? Take her aside, take her offline,
Yeah.
and let her know I care about you and I want you to succeed, right? Because you do, you care about her, right? And you want her to do well. And so she gives me 3 nods and she's, yeah. And I'm like, great. And then I said, and you can say, may I share an observation with you, right? The same approach. And she ended up doing it. The conversation went so well. My challenging that leader, assuring her that I'm here for her, right, as her partner, it yielded a new trust and bond in the team that wasn't there before.
That example really crystallizes my belief that to be the one telling the truth really garners more trust. Those things go hand in hand. Of course, wording it in a way that people can receive it. So, thank you for sharing that. It's a really powerful one. And it also brings up an example. I often share on these conversations of
Yeah.
like the ways that I messed up leading. And in my early career, I was promoted to lead a team. I must have been early 30s. And I hired a person on my team who had the same challenge, dressing inappropriate. This was back in the day banking industry, so it was pretty buttoned up. We had to have a
Mhm,
certain there were dress codes, to your point. I remember
right.
wearing pantyhose. I'm, like,
Mhm.
going way back, and it was required that women had to wear pantyhose. So the dress code was pretty tight, and the person on my team, every day, I had a peer come to me and "Can you talk to that?" He's wearing a hoodie and looks very, quote, unquote, "messy." So I had that same situation, that kind of uncomfortable conversation, and I think I would have really appreciated the guidance from someone like you at that point.
Mhm,
No
mhm.
one really told me how to say it or what to say or how to approach it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what it is to be a partner and to work to be a great coworker, right? And somebody that people can come to. Sometimes it is, "Hey, I think this is a really great opportunity for you, and I'm here for you, right? And I'm gonna help you through this. I'm gonna be right by your side, and you can do it."
Mhm. Yeah. You're so affirming in the how you support people. I'm sure you have, and on this side of entrepreneurship, so many clients wanting to work with you. How did you build I'm making a big leap here. How did you build your business going from internal and deciding let's back up. How did you decide to start your own business?
Yeah. So yeah, 2018, right? My really sweet 15-month-old daughter was like throwing food off the table and shrieking. Little did I know that's just developmentally appropriate. Either way, like, I had a strong conviction that I need to spend more time with her. That's really important right now. But on the flip side, I love to work. So I had to ask myself, what's my highest and best use? I wasn't going to be great working at the bakery down the street, really.
Yeah.
And I set out to start my own HR consulting practice, and that was going to give me that autonomy and flexibility and diversity of work that's in my wheelhouse and that aligned with me. And so that's really the impetus of why I started my own practice. And little did I know that what that meant was like going from being a practitioner in house to 95% BD, like business development.
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But you know what? I realized I actually love that. I really loved getting curious about different business problems, different companies' organizational issues, and looking at the opportunities, right? And like, where can I really help? Yeah.
Yeah. I also love it because I've reframed what we typically see as business development. In my mind, before I started a company, I thought of business development as I got a call, I got to knock on the doors, I've got to go to networking events, which felt completely artificial to me and not connective in the way that I wanted to connect. And once I got into the groove of, oh my gosh, if I just have a conversation that feels genuine and come from the desire to support and really, to your point, curiosity is key. How can I serve? What's the challenge? Here's a thought. And having just an organic conversation, the BD just comes naturally. And I guess that's the part I want to pull for anyone that wants to start their own business is business development is the connection between you and somebody and helping them solve a problem in a generous way and perhaps letting go of outcomes and expectations that you're gonna get the thing, because if you lead with getting the thing, that comes through and feels disingenuous.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And I think there were probably moments earlier on in my business where I didn't get things right either. I was just starting out. And there are definitely times when I second guessed myself. When I was just starting out, my first client, I had no idea what I was doing with pricing. And I totally undersold myself,
Oh
you
my
know,
god.
and totally not estimating how much effort and how much time this was going to take.
If I was gonna say, if you didn't have that period of time, you'd be lying. I'd say you are full of it because
Right?
when
But I
you
learned so much so fast.
yes, my before I started this 9-year stint, I did another stint where I failed so I fucked it all up, I'll say that. And it
Mhm.
was my best learning. Like, all of those, what I call fail forward moments, literally, it's what made this part of entrepreneurship so much more joyful, stable, authentic, and sustainable and growing.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
you're yeah. I mean, and I think one of the other kind of like memories I have, just starting out was in 2019, right? This really a tech company that scaled from 300 people to 2,000 people in about 18 months. They wanted to work with me. And I recall, like negotiating that contract. And one of the moments that really stuck with me was when the HR leader that I was going to work with asked about my pricing. And it was after that fail forward moment. And he asked me, Grace, is your price competitive for what we're asking you to do? Because there's a boutique HR consulting firm that has 10 to 15 years more experience than you, and they're willing to come in at a lower rate. And I second guessed myself. And I was thinking to myself, did I leave corporate too early to start my business? Should I have stayed 2 more years and made it 10 years? But ultimately, my response to that question was, that's something you're going to have to consider. You're going to have to think about who's going to deliver the value that you need right now. Who brings that dynamic blend of strategy and execution that the company needs right now? Who do you trust? And ultimately, who do you want to work with? Right. And I landed the client, by the way.
Yay. I was going to say, if you didn't, I would have been shocked. I'm most curious about the in between thinking between the second guessing and the outcome of that conversation that you had, which was so compelling. It's very compelling. And so, what's that in between space in your mind where you're like, oh shit, should I have stayed more in my corporate life to get more experience? Did I make a mistake? And then what were
Yeah.
the steps?
How do I answer this guy, right?
Yes, that's the nugget.
And I forgot which one of your guests said this, right? But it's do it afraid, do
Yeah,
it scared.
yeah.
Yeah. Time
Lena.
and time again. Was this Lena? Yeah. I think that's the key, right? I'm like, you know what? That's a question you have to answer for yourself. There are a couple of questions that you need to consider because I'm really comfortable with that pricing. And I'm willing to walk away because I do know at this point what my value is. And I do know that's exactly what you guys need right now. But, so that's, and hung up the call, looked at my husband, completely melted after that. And I was like, I don't know. Should I have stayed longer in corporate? Should I not have come out? Maybe it was too soon. And he was like, Grace, you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you're doing. And you are learning in 2 weeks, 2 months, what most people would take 2 years, 10 years to learn.
Yeah.
You are learning at a pace that can't be compared to. So it's just, you know what you're doing. Don't second guess yourself.
Here's what I want to call out to for anyone that's interested and really leaning into the entrepreneurship, whether it's HR, whether it's coaching, whatever the entrepreneurship bucket is, these moments are real. And we have to amplify that they exist no matter what stage of entrepreneurship you're in. Look, you're 8 years in, I'm nearly 10 years in, and I still have those, oh shit, did I do the right fill in the blank? It's less now, certainly. I'll be real. In the first year or two, I had so many of those moments. And thank God for people around me. Here's the other thing I want people to hear. You need people around you to remind you of your why, to say, hey, in that instance, your husband looked at you and said, you know what you're doing. So it helped you get back to center. In my early years, I had people around me and my ex-husband at the time too, who said, you're experienced. Stay to your gut and instincts and all the knowledge that you bring into the situation. I've had numerous moments where I fell apart and go, I'm never going to get work again. And that is the real side of entrepreneurship that I really want people to know. It's normal. It's okay. My thing is, how do you ride the waves of that, right? How do you come back to center? Because there's always a next.
There is always a next. And I do think, whenever a door does close, there's a very good reason for that. And oftentimes it could be a dodged bullet, but it also may mean there's something better. There's something better suited for you, something more aligned to you, and something that's going to really make more use of you, better use of you.
Yes, and thank you for the nod to my book, and I will mention here that Grace has read both my books, so thank you.
I'm a big fan, Sohee. I've read Mommy Tracked on the Aligned Mindset, and I've had a book club with two of my friends on the Aligned Mindset, and we just so enjoyed talking about all the different nuggets and even your encouragement to micro actions. All of those things have really shaped us over, 6 months or 7 months that we read the book together.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. I think that book is really appropriate for entrepreneurship, just aligning your mindset to set you up for success. What's been your success on this side of your career? What keeps you going? That's 2 questions. What keeps you going and doing what you're doing? And what do you think makes you successful at it?
Yeah, I think for me, whether it's I'm working in-house for a company full time or whether I'm consulting, for me, I'm always looking at I love a good challenge. And I worked with different companies in various industries, different operating models. And for me, like what keeps me going is the problem and the opportunity at the company. What are we trying to solve? What are we trying to build? What are we trying to do here? And I love, yeah, learning new sides of the business, learning new functions, new jobs, new industries. And yeah, and that's really, I think what makes me successful. It's that curiosity I have about what's going on over here. Being a quick study, getting a handle on it very quickly, and then driving the most meaningful outcomes.
Because curiosity, I think, leads one to connection in a deeper way, in a real way.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you see ahead for yourself? If you're reading tea leaves in your career, do you foresee continuing to grow in this field and being an entrepreneur?
There is a conversation I'm having or two about potential other opportunities. And for me, again, whether it's in house or consulting, it's really not about the modality of work, but it's about building and doing things with leadership teams and with businesses and companies that really make a difference.
Yeah. What I hear there is that we need to be very flexible to the plot twists.
Mhm.
And this is the concept from my first book. It's about seasons. What's the season? And does it invite in some new businesses, prospects, just different ways of serving in the field? And I really had to embrace that. You have to be okay with different seasons and pivots. And if you're a business owner, maybe going back internal and vice versa, those are all okay. I think sometimes we get stuck in one way.
Yeah. And one of my friends, Alex, said this that it's not a life sentence. One way or another, whether it's in house or consulting, right? Like it's not something that you got to be stuck with forever. And there's a freedom and kind of a liberation around that, right? That we have the freedom to choose which way we're going to work for a season or for a time. And just got to think about what is appropriate for this time.
What is appropriate for this time? And then you take the micro action to adjust. And it's like the time where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go and create CPG products. And I was having one of these existential moments. And the mentor at the time was like, look, you can always refocus if this is what you want to do now and bring forward candles or all of the different wellness products that I've put out. It's not forever. You can continue coaching, which I do. So I think there's this binary thinking that I know I've fallen into, which can be limiting.
Yeah, no, and we're people of diverse interests and strengths. And again, it's a tapa style way of doing things. Stuck with one entree, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is that one entree, it was so deeply ingrained in the generations before us and what successful career looked like.
Right.
So I have to point that out that we're swimming get up in the current of quote unquote what a successful career looks. And that these days it is more of the tapas style than it is staying somewhere for 40 years.
Yeah, and that portfolio career and diversifying it and mixing it up, I think that makes sense for a lot of people.
Yeah. And is that what you're seeing when you talk to your clients who are big, small, mid-sized companies? That type of career is not, oh my gosh, the person's a jumper, but more of a accepted. The question being, is it more accepted?
Yeah, and I think that the more senior you become, right? The more you become a leader and an executive. That's actually what companies look for. That fungibility and that ability to cut across different functions and different businesses. And that kind of agility is actually really sought after.
Yeah. I want to ask a question around leadership and what's needed now. Most of my clients are leaders in corporations, and there is capital U uncertainty all around in different ways. So, what would you advise a leader now in terms of how to galvanize teams or make it through uncertainty? And also, what are you seeing?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think we could spend a lot of time on that question. I think leaders, again, like who are curious, who create connection with their teams, are the ones that are going to differentiate themselves. I think in terms of what the jobs are, the workflow, the bundle of skills, all of those things are obviously essential, right? To planning a workforce, to planning an organization, and to making the business work. But at the same time, what also makes a business work is having the teams that use the tools and the platforms that augment their skills and their jobs and make it more productive. And so the more cohesive and connected you can develop the culture of your team, the trust on your teams, the connectivity, the more questions you ask, the more curious you get about the people that you're working with, the more you invest in them to grow them. I think that's really what's going to make a difference.
I really appreciate the summary of that. You certainly are very dynamic. And I'm wondering how you define what it means to be a modern Asian female.
Yeah, I was thinking about this question because you asked this on your podcast.
I
And,
do.
and for me, a modern Asian female really takes the best parts of our culture and doubles down on it. And she takes care of her health and her skin. I'm Korean for you. But it doesn't stop there, right? So the modern Asian female really is committed to her community, is trustworthy and dependable. She follows through on what she says she's going to do. The modern Asian female is bold. She says what needs to be said. And while she carefully considers risks, she takes the necessary ones.
Grace, that is such a beautiful definition. And I
Yeah.
think you live that.
Thank you. I also think, right, the modern Asian female knows that there's space for others just like her, right? And when there seems not to be that space, she creates it.
Say that part again. That needs to be repeated. It has to be repeated.
The modern Asian female knows there's space for others just like her. And when there seems not to be, she creates that space.
Okay, that is just the mic drop moment. Grace, I know we can go on for longer, and I certainly will connect with you. And this has been such a valuable conversation on so many levels. So I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sohee.
I don't know about you. In this conversation, I felt that Grace provided so many practical and actionable tips around how to give feedback, around how to be direct and clear and kind. And that is what made her the go to trusted HR partner. And what I also keep coming back to in this conversation with Grace is the line and how she defined what it means to be a modern Asian female. She said, the modern Asian female knows there's space for others just like her. And when there isn't, she creates it. Wow, I feel like that part needs to be said and repeated because really that's the nugget. That's the whole thing. And here's the other thing I want to call out that Grace and I, we discovered that we had a lot of parallel tracks with her pastor's home, my dad being a Buddhist monk, and our monk's home, both full of people from every walk of life. And what it left us both with is that this belief that there's so much more that ties us together than pulls us apart. And in today's world, with all of these wonderful tools that allow us to do more, do it faster, be more, we are lonelier than ever. And so I want you to sit with that one because it's one that I'm sitting with as well. And she also named something that I see all the time in my coaching practice, the women that over rehearse, the women that hesitate when they already have the answer. And remember, I raised my hand in this episode about the over rehearsing. I was a woman in Hawaii over rehearsing her training instead of joining my friend for her wedding festivities. So if that's you, I see you. And I also want you to really hear Grace, which is when you have the answer, what's holding you back? And then we touched on the entrepreneurial life and the second guessing that comes with this lifestyle. And also the fail forward moments, the oh shit moments of did I make a mistake and the spiral that we can get into. That's all real. And it's normal and it's okay. The micro action was never to avoid the waves. It was really to look at how do you come back to center? And this is a question that I pose to my coaching clients quite often. How do you and or what are the methods that help you come back to center? So, as you linger on that one, here are three more reflection questions for you. So, grab your favorite beverage, and I encourage you to flow journal your way to clarity around these questions. The first question is, where in your life are you still running in seventh gear? You know, that survival mode that got you here. And what would it actually feel like to take your foot off the gas? The pull through question, the sub question underneath that is that gear still serving you? Or are you just afraid of who you would be without it? So be gentle with yourself around this question. The second reflection question is think about the last room where you had the answer at the tip of your tongue and you stayed quiet. Reflect on what was really holding you back and who might have been changed if you'd let yourself be heard unrehearsed. And then the third question, Grace said that when there isn't space for a woman like her, she creates it. So, whose door are you holding open right now? And where do you need to stop waiting for a seat and build the room yourself? Okay, so if any of these landed for you the way it did for me, here's what I'd love. Share this conversation. Send it to that woman, your friend, your coworker, your colleague, your aunt. They need to hear this. Your bestie, your work wife. And if you've got 60 seconds, I'm going to ask you to please leave a review because I read every single one. And it's really what helps the next woman who needs this find her way here. And remember, I'm all about growing this community. We need to amplify the stories of the modern Asian woman. And lastly, follow because I don't want you to miss who's in the room with me next because there will be a next. And then one more thing. If Grace stirred something up in you about ambition and seasons of life and betting on yourself, guess what? That's the exact theme and territory of my two books, Mommy Tract and The Aligned Mindset. That's the one that Grace read with her book club. She actually read both. So go find them on Amazon. They're exclusively on Amazon. And start with whichever one your gut and your instinct reaches for, because guess what? That's the one that you probably need. Thank you so much for being here in this conversation with me. Until next time, be well.